Raider head coach Tom Cable this morning in Napa amid reports that on August 5th, he allegedly punched defensive assistant Randy HANSON in an altercation.
Listen, if you want to talk about this football team, the players on this football team, I'll talk to you all day. Otherwise, I'm not getting into it.
Murph's Fan Cave and Raiders Fan Radio present an RFR special report. Join us as we interview one of the coaches involved in one of the most notorious events in Oakland Raiders history. Unfiltered truth from inside the walls of Alameda. This is Falling from a Dream, the Randy HANSON tapes.
HANSON, who still is not identified who attacked him, was treated at a Napa hospital for a broken jaw. There are conflicting reports. One cites 4 text messages from players confirming Cable was the coach who caused the injury. Another said that Cable flipped HANSON out of a desk and then broke his jaw when his face collided with a cabinet.
Nothing happened.
A broken jaw, in the manner of which it was reported, is a felony. Napa police say if Mr. HANSON wants to press this, he has to come in and give us a name.
Part 2. So you mentioned the deposition there. So in 2009, right, there's an altercation. So Lane Kiffin gets let go. Tom Cable replaces him. He's now the head coach. And there's an altercation between you and Tom, and other coaches are involved as well. What can you tell us about that to set the record straight, Randy? What can you just kind of break it down for us? It's the elephant in the room. Unfortunately, It's a story that you're tied to. You've got this awesome story, and I think it's unfortunate that a lot of times it gets boiled down to this one reference point. It's one of the reasons that I'm so glad to have you on the show, is because we want to hear about the big picture and not just this one isolated thing. But because it is the thing, then let's go ahead and just clear it up for us.
First of all, let's start off with me and Tom Cable. We know each other. We're both from the state of Washington, and he went to a high school. He's just a couple of years older than I am. I think he was graduated in 83 and I was 86. So he went to Snohomish High School up in Washington, which ended up becoming the winningest team in the in the history of Washington, beating my school. We were the winningest team in the state of Washington for several years. Our head coach was, and then after a few years later on, I think his school broke the record, our coach's record. So we were both came from the same area. And we both played at the 2 most successful high schools in the state of Washington. But I'd heard of Tom, but I hadn't. The first time I ever met Tom Cable would have been when I was coaching at Eastern Washington University. Our coaching staff went over to visit the Idaho coaching staff when Tom Cable was the head coach at Idaho. And I met him for just a little bit. And we talked, and we started talking, and we kind of hit it off just a little bit because he was a Raider fan too. He's also a Raider fan, but not like a diehard Raider fan, but a Raider fan. He nothing less. He's still a Raider fan, so that's good enough for me. And so anyway, we met that time, and then I didn't see him again until he was at the Senior Bowl, the year that Lane got the job, and I met him again. And I don't think he even remembered meeting me at when I was at Eastern Washington. About must have been 6, 7, 8 years earlier. But anyway, he met me again through a guy named Jim Chaney, who used to coach with them and was coaching with me at the Rams at the time. And he introduced me to Tom Cable and said, "You guys will get along great together, you 2 Raider fans." One of those deals. and so we did. We got along great. I mean, shoot, that first 2 years, really, Cable would always come hang out in my office. We'd both shoot Copenhagen, so I'd give him a shoe. He'd come get a shoe or whatever. And I'd been in the league a little bit. That was his first year in the league, was 2007 with the Raiders. Actually, the year before, I think 2006, he was with the Falcons for a year. So he'd only been in the league a year, and I've been in the league since 2003. And so I have a lot of reports and tendencies on a lot of teams that I saved over the years. And sometimes he would come to my office before a game, and for example, we're playing the Colts in 2007, and I had some information on them. It helped us when I was at Minnesota. And so I gave him that, I gave him the tips that I had on them, and then, he would go check it out and see if they held up, if they were still true. In that particular game, they still were. We almost beat the Colts. that game. In fact, we should have won that game. We should have beat them. There was a third down play. I'll never forget it. Third down play where they trying to throw to Reggie Wayne on Namdi Asamoah on third down on our sideline, Raiders sideline, and I'm the replay guy in the booth. I'm in charge of the replay, and I'm screaming at Lane. He didn't catch the ball. The ball hit the ground. And Lane goes, I was right there. He caught it. And I said, no, Lane, I'm watching on TV. He didn't catch it. And we had an argument over it. He didn't throw the flag.
Oh.
And he didn't throw the flag. And they would have had the punt. We'd have got the ball back. Instead, they went down, they scored with about a minute to go. And they threw a touchdown pass on Fabian Washington. And they scored. We had a chance to win the game, to knock the Colts off, at home. But anyway, Tom Cable and I were friends all the way up until it was so weird because here I am with, Cable and me. We don't hang out. We don't go out, together. I never went out at all because I was always working. I didn't go out and hang out much. I might go down to Ricky's in San Leandro and see, Ricky and Tina down there every now and then, but usually I was working. So I didn't really hang out with anybody. I was in the office. A lot of times I just stayed there all night. Don Martindale was the same way. He was a workaholic. He would be there working all night. So, but as far as, in the office and all that type of stuff, me and Tom were, came from the same area and we knew of each other and we got along great until the day he became the head coach, the intern head coach. And it started off where he was named interim head coach, and it was during the bye week. And on that particular day, after he was named the coach, I went into the office, congratulated him, and he just kind of gave me a weird kind of like silent look or whatever. And that was also during the time where, there's another story. You might want to, I got a lot of things to tell you now, but I thought of something else too. I should write these things down.
You could write a book. Yeah, this is awesome.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, my dad told me that 100, but you know what? I've been wanting. I've kept quiet for 10 years. Held a lot of things inside, and I wasn't able to defend myself. For example, the Napa DA, he lied. The police reports are still sealed, but I actually have a copy of them, and those coaches in the room did corroborate my story, and the police did issue 2 felony arrest warrants for his arrest, but no one knows that because all they heard was that the DA said that I couldn't get my story straight and that the witnesses never corroborated my story. And that's a whole other story in itself because I'm the one that probably am at fault for the DA not prosecuting because I wouldn't talk. I was the last person to talk because I was trying to keep it under wraps. so I didn't want to get out. I didn't want to be a distraction. So, and anyway, I lost track of where I was at. We were going back to Cable was hired, and it was right after Kiffin had been let go. And that's a whole nother story. But anyway, there was an article that came out where I was in an article by Steve Corcoran where I was interviewed by him, supposedly like an exclusive interview, but it wasn't really that. It was like 2 weeks. It was like right after the week we lost to Denver. Okay, we lost to Denver, and I got sent home for a week. Lane suspended me for a week because I said some things in the locker room after the game, and I was just talking to Martindale, and there was really no one around. I didn't know that Lane even was in there to hear it, but I just told Martindale, I said, dude, it's a good thing Shanahan didn't have our players. They beat us 150 to nothing. Because what I was saying is we have better players than they do, and they have better coaches than we do. And so anyway, Lane, the next day, calls me his office and says, hey, you're working too hard. You need to go take a week off. We're only after week 1 of the NFL season, and he'd been acting real distant toward me for over a year now. He'd been just doing little nitpick things, to me. I could go on numerous examples. But anyway, Tom Cable is my buddy. I'm going to just go back to the original story. Tom Cable's my buddy. And then he becomes the head coach. And all of a sudden, he's not my buddy anymore. And in fact, the next day after he was named the head coach, we had a staff meeting not the next day, excuse me, the following Monday when we were coming back from the bye. We usually had our staff meetings at 7 o'clock, staff meetings with the coaches. So I get to work, and usually I'm there early, but on this particular day I got there around, 6:45 or whatever, because it was after the bye week. And plus I'd already had all my stuff done for the next. I was ready to roll for the game after that one, even after the one that was coming up. And I know we're going to play the Saints. That's another great story. I got millions of them. But anyway, we have this meeting. We have this meeting that's normally at 7 o'clock. But I get there around 6:45 and the door's shut. And I walk in and there's everybody in the Raider organization is in this meeting. And Tom Cale, Randy, could you leave? I said, sure. What's going on here? And so I left, and he just kind of made a big deal about it. You're late. And I'm like, I've never been late to anything. And what happened was there was a staff meeting called. He had called like a 6:30 staff meeting for everybody in the organization that worked in that building. He wanted them all in there, and he was going to get everybody on his team type of thing. And everybody got a text message about this meeting up to their phone except for one person.
Oh.
It's me. I never knew about it. So then he comes out of the meeting. Then he comes out of that meeting, and I was fuming. I'm pretty pissed. This is, he just been named interim head coach. I'm pissed off because I didn't know about this meeting. And he comes in and he says to me, he goes, I could fire you if I wanted to. And he goes, if I could, I would fire you right now. And I was like shocked. I go, this guy's been my buddy all this time, and all of a sudden I couldn't believe he was saying it. I'm like, what's wrong, Tom? What's up? I go, what's going on here? And he goes, hey, get out of my office. And that's how it all started. And then, then there was just numerous things that happened after that led up to the incident. But, for example, after we finished out the season, we beat Tampa Bay, by the way, on the road. My last NFL game I ever coached in was probably the best game I ever had in the NFL as a coach. I called 47 plays that day. Gruden called. In fact, we were 12-point underdogs, and we were 5-10 going into that game, I believe, if I remember correctly. But anyway, we beat Tampa Bay, knocked Gruden out of the playoffs, and that was the last game he coached, and he ended up getting fired.
Yeah, wow.
He was getting fired after that game, and the next game he coaches in is with the Raiders this year, and that was the last game I coached in. And that particular day, I called every one of his plays. In fact, I'll never forget the first third down of the game. It was the third play of the game. It was 3rd and 6. They were on the left hash, the way you look at it on defense, and they came out with 21 personnel in the game. And I stayed awake for 48 hours. We flew to Tampa Bay on Friday night, and as soon as we got there, I had John Otten set the video equipment up, and I said, I'm going to get this guy. Because if I wanted to get somebody, I could get him. I mean, usually I could. There were some guys that were tough, but everybody always has tendencies. And we flew to Tampa Bay, and I still had my suit on, my duffel bag on, and everything. I never checked into my room the whole entire time we were in Tampa Bay for 48 hours. I never ever went to my room. Never checked in. And I wore the same clothes for 48 hours straight, and I watched every single Tampa Bay game in those 48 hours. There were some intermissions when we had, our room was also where the players would come in and meet. So sometimes the players would come in and I would meet with them a little bit, and then we'd have meetings, and then we do that. But then when everybody left that room, I was there, and I would studied film. And to make a long story short, I nailed them. I nailed them bad. And the third play of the game, they came out 21 personnel, and I told Rob Ryan, here they're going to run toss crack to our right. And Rob goes, there's a third down. They're running toss crack to our right, Rob. They've only been in this personnel group with this tight end in the game 2 other times all season long, and both times they ran toss crack to the right for first downs. It's coming again. They did it in week 4. They did it in week 8. They did it in week 1. And it's week 16 is coming. And so he tells Kurt Morrison on the headset, he goes, hey, tell our corner over there to the right side to watch out for toss crack. And it wasn't Namdi because Namdi wasn't playing that day. He was hurt. We actually were playing 3 backups in the secondary that day. Tampa Bay was a 12-point favorite. And they win the game, they're going to get a first-round bye in the playoffs. But if they lose, they're knocked out of the playoffs. And that third play of the game, sure enough, here it comes. I even called the motion and everything. And sure enough, they ran toss correct to the right, and we tackled them for a yard gain, or maybe it was a yard loss, and they had to punt. And now here's the thing. Here's how I nailed the Gruden. I could never call the first play of a series. I had to wait until they ran the first play of a series, and then after that, I could get him.
Okay.
And I knew it off the situation. I knew it based off the situation and what personnel group he had in the game. Now, he could have 21 personnel in the game. Let's go back to that 3rd and 5. I'll give you an example. If they were that 21 personnel on 3rd and 5 or 6 in that range, probably 20 times all year, okay? They threw the ball out of that formation 18 times, but the tight end was Jeremy Stevens. Gilmore was out of the game. He was a blocking tight end. But the 2 times they were in 21 personnel, the only 2 times they were in 21 personnel on 3rd down the entire year when Gilmore was the tight end, that's when they ran the ball. So that's how I knew.
Okay.
So I just had to know the situation. I just needed to know what the situation was. For example, the second series, Tampa Bay came out on the first play and they got a run for like 6 yards. So that created a down and distance situation of 2nd and 6 or less. Okay, so now, for example, I had a sheet in front of me and I had Rob Ryan had them on the sideline of my tips, but I had it memorized. And so it's 2nd and 6 after a run. Here's the situation. Another one. After a run of 4 yards or more, if John Gruden came out with 12 personnel, which is 1 back and 2 tight ends, he was 100% play action, throw deep. 100% going to take a shot. In that particular personnel group with 2 tight ends in the game. I told Rob, Rob, he's going to throw it. They're going to play action deep. So Rob said, all right, tell those safeties to be looking for it, and you guys, everybody else, play the run. And sure enough, it was 2nd down and 6, I believe, or maybe a long 7. And sure enough, play action pass. They're throwing deep. We had our safety back there waiting for it. And our corners bailed. They were usually impressed. They were belling and running, and quarterback was Garcia. He had to hold the ball, and we got a sack. And so that was 3rd and long. Okay, and I was a 3rd down specialist, so I knew 3rd down inside and out. What I did against Gruden is I got him on on that 2nd down or first down after he gained the 1st down. You see what I'm saying? Those situations.
Uh-huh.
And I think I called 47 plays that day, and that doesn't count the first play of the series, and there was only like 65 plays in that game. So I was 100% damn near on all the plays I called. And we had Hiram Eugene had an interception. Rashad Baker had an interception. And Justin Miller, the starter for he had an interception, I believe, in that game. All 3 of the backups did.
Wow.
We knew where the ball was going. We knew where the ball was going. It was based off studying.
Who are your safeties that day? Is that Huff and Branch back there, or who are your safeties? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had Jabril Wilson was the starting safety.
Uh-huh.
And Huff was out that day, so we were playing Hiram. Huff might have started, might have played a little bit, but he was a little banged up. Hiram Eugene played for us that day. Rashad Baker, he played on 3rd down. Hiram was our 3rd down free safety.
Okay.
And then Rashad Baker came in, and he was on situations, certain situational groups, like he might be a certain nickel group. We might be nickel red or nickel blue or whatever. That meant, a certain particular safety was in the game. And likewise on offense, 21 personnel red means that Gilmore's the tight end. 21 personnel without a color call means that one of the other 2 guys is a tight end, And that there tells us if it's a run or a pass. And, with Gilmore, I nailed it, with going back to, those personnel group things. I mean, I nailed it down to okay, after a 1st down incomplete pass, if John Gruden comes out with 11 personnel and so-and-so is the tight end, then he is going to do this 100% of the time. Or it's going to be this. It was that. Those are the type of tendencies he had. But I don't think John Gruden thought anyone would ever take the time to figure something out like that. He probably knew it. He probably said, they're not going to figure that out. They're not going to, who's going to take the time to figure that out? Well, I was. I was going to take the time to figure it out. And I did. And I made him a movie star that day. Well, I mean, it wasn't. I'm not saying I did it on my own or anything like that, but we didn't have much of a chance to win the game with the guys we were playing that day, the injuries we had, and Tom Cable. Let me tell you something else about that game. You know who was at that game that day working with Tampa Bay?
Who's that?
Helped Tampa Bay out that day.
Who's that?
That whole entire week. That would be Lane Kiffin and our offensive line coach who had just quit the team. He left the coach's box. I believe it was halftime of the Houston game. James Craig, and he flew out, and they went and they met with Monty Kiffin and the Gruden staff, and they went over everything the Raiders. They should have, if anybody should have beat us, it should have been them. because they knew everything about us. They knew our signals. They knew everything because they had an offensive line coach who had just coached us up until the week before, helping them. No one ever talks about that, do they? No one ever brings that up, do they? Yeah, but guess what? Didn't work. It didn't work. You know why? Because I did to Gruden what I used to do to them every day in practice. Cold play. So.
Oh my gosh. So let's. Oh my gosh. There's so much I want to ask you about because I want to ask you about Gruden now. But before we go to Gruden now, let's go to Gruden even before then. You said you had a story about the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. Tell me about that.
Okay. All right. How many interceptions did Rich Gannon throw that season going to the Super Bowl?
It wasn't very many.
I'm going to say 10.
Yeah.
I think it was 10.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I think I had 10 interceptions all year long.
I'll look it up here, but yeah, it wasn't very many.
What I'm going to tell you is going to blow you away. What I'm going to tell you, what you're going to find out here is going to blow you away. And I don't even think Gruden knew about it. He got the credit for it, but I don't think he knew about it. I don't think he even knew about it. He may have, he may not have, but I doubt it. Okay, here's what happened. And I didn't realize what had happened until maybe it might have been my last after the incident. I put two and two together because it started when Tim Brown. At first, it started when Dick Bromansky, the equipment manager, used to come. He used to come and hang out in my office every morning early because I was the only one there, and he'd be there real early. He'd come up and have coffee with me. He would tell me great stories about the Raiders. You know,
he was there for a million years. Long time equipment manager. Yeah.
He designed the logo. He's the person that designed the logo for the helmet. Richard Romansky, the equipment manager. He did the design for Al Davis. Anyway, so he would come and he would tell me stories about games and this and that. And then we started talking about the Super Bowl. And he goes, they cheated. I said, how did they do that? And he goes, there's two guys. He goes, we had two guys on our sideline that I didn't recognize. They were standing over by that Motorola, whatever that machine is. You know where they have the quarterback? You know how the quarterback, they have the helmet radio for the quarterback.
Sure.
And so the coach will send the play in for the quarterback, right? Well, if you know what the play calls are, you're standing next to that Motorola setup on the sideline. I mean, you can hear even during a game. It's so loud, the communication, that if the stadium were quiet, you'd be able to hear the play call going to the quarterback. It's pretty loud. The microphone is in the helmet, but you can't hear it when you watch it on. But it's loud, okay?
Okay.
You can hear the call going to. A lot of times you can hear the call going to the helmet. Now on the field, it's probably tough with the crowd noise and all that. But still, if there's about sometimes you can hear it. But when you have two people that know what the calls are, okay, you have two people that know what the calls are and they understand the terminology, then they can signal up to the coach's box because they're going to hear the call as the same call that Gannon's going to hear just by standing over there on the sideline by that setup, by the Raiders communication setup with the quarterback. And I think each sideline has one or two guys that are always on that sideline kind of monitoring, make sure that it works for both sides and that type of stuff. I don't know who they're hired by, maybe the NFL, I'm assuming, or whatever. But anyway, Dick Romansky tells me this story about, he goes, I noticed these guys were they were standing there. And they seemed to be quiet, not talking to each other. And they were like, one time they'd have their arms folded, and then another time they'd have their arms, not folded. And so what I put two and two together here. What happened? It makes all the sense in the world now. It started when Tim Brown said that he thought the game was fixed. And I heard Jerry Rice say he thought the game was fixed. And I heard, and you know what? I coached in a lot of games where we knew what the other team was going to do, just off studying, not by cheating, but we had a damn good idea of what they were going to do. We had tendencies on them, like we knew a runner pass by a guy's stance or something like that. And like, I was at Portland State, we beat Hawaii. It was a 30-point favorite. We beat them by 20 points because we knew every one of their plays because of tips. But if you know their plays and you don't have to even study for it, and you got somebody who understands that terminology, standing on the sideline, and they know they understand what the play call is going in, if it's a run or if it's a pass. Even they don't even know what type of run it is or what type of pass. Just if it's a run or pass, it's going to help the defensive coordinator make the perfect call, and also it's going to let a person on the sideline be able to, or not the sideline, but he'll be able to have the coach on the sideline, whoever from the box will give the communication to the coach on the sideline. He'll just tell the linebacker on the headset, hey, or whoever's wearing the headset, hey, watch, hey, you're going to get a run here. They're going to be in this formation. You're going to get this formation. You're going to get a play action pass here. And look for the guy over the middle of the ball, because the coaches will give coaching points when they call plays in. Like, for example, here's an example. Like when I was with Linehan, he would call let's go 12 personnel in, 12 in. And the play might be, let's go train right, whiz, play pass 40 gut, extra, look, hey, if you get cover, if you get single high safety, look to throw the post. Look to throw the post on the top if you see him settle. Like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, if they're hearing the same exact things that's going to the quarterback's helmet, they're telling their players exactly the same thing that Gann is telling the Raider players in the huddle. And they're in the perfect call. Okay, so anyway, Dick Romanski, and I'm watching this game, and I'll never forget, it just didn't make sense. And I've been coaching a long time, and I know when a team's got a team nailed, they know something. I know that. Well, there's no doubt that they knew something, because the Raiders, they had never looked so bad. And I mean, they'd never looked so bad, except Dick Romanski tells me the story, and he goes in, and they started noticing, he said late in the third quarter, he said they started noticing that I was kind of looking at him. And so I kept my eye on him, and he said, I told everybody, coaches, that if they were so into the game, they didn't really listen to Romanski. They were so wrapped up in the game, when you're, oh yeah, right, sure, there's somebody over on our sidelines giving them our plays, you're kind of like, you're caught up in the moment. But the truth of the matter is, I think it happened. I really do. And I think that's why Rich Gannon threw 5 interceptions in that one game, and he only threw 10 the entire damn season.
So and
now here's why. Remember how the Raiders made a rally and came back?
Yeah.
They scored 21 unanswered points. Rich Romanski said, he goes, they stopped doing it for a while, and they knew I was watching them. And they quit signaling them for a while. And then late in the game, they started up again when it got close. True story. He told me this. And I'm like,
okay. We've talked a lot about this scenario in this game on our show with other analysts and just all kinds of people. And there seems to be like 2 different schools of thought. One of them was that it was an absolute conspiracy, whoever was in on it, but it was an absolute conspiracy that the Buccaneers had inside information about the team. Then that's why they had such a command of the game. And then the other conspiracy, or the other thought, is that, well, Callahan just didn't do anything to prepare or change away from the game plan and the terminology and the whole structure of the offense, and that the guy that invented it was across the sideline. But it sounds to me like, Randy, like both of those things are true, because if the terminology isn't changed and these guys on the sidelines, all they got to do is pick up 1 or 2 words or key phrases, and then the whole thing becomes clear, right?
Let me tell you something though. Okay, there's about 3 different languages of terminology in the NFL. And the terminology in the NFL isn't that much different from team to team. It really isn't. That's why players can go from one team to the other, and get things up fairly quickly. A lot of coaches will coach with each other. And for example, the terminology as far as pass protection goes, it's pretty much the same around the league. So when you hear a 2-jet or 3-jet or 2-scat, 3-scat or whatever, it's a pass. It's a drop back. You just know that stuff because every team uses the same kind of similar, terms for plays. Formations are similar, So the terminology isn't that much different from team to team. Even from, you have your West Coast offenses. They have a little bit longer terminology, and then you have your offenses more like the Dennis Green offenses or Scott Linehan type offenses, where it's less terminology and less wording, and let's get a lot of plays ran fast, that type of stuff. But for the most part, it's not too difficult to pick up another team's terminology because it's very similar. It's kind of like a little bit maybe like Spanish and English. These are certain things that you can understand. They might not sound exactly the same, but that
football and football or whatever, right? It's kind of the same.
Yeah, right, yeah,
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be that tough. And now I'm going to tell you another story that I know that now this is when I really started thinking this story's true. All right. Back to your conspiracy. I don't think Drew knew about it. I think that he took credit for it, though. I don't think he had any problem doing that because he probably believed that he had a lot to do with it because he was running the scout team offense and all that. But the fact of the matter is, I'm pretty sure Tampa Bay knew the plays because I've heard so many players say, even just on NFL films, you could, when they have the mics on the sideline, I remember Lynch, their safety, saying, "Shoot, we know every play. We know exactly what's coming out."
Yeah, him and Brooks, they were calling out their freaking.
Yeah, they knew everything.
Yeah,
they knew everything, and because they knew it because they were being told, kind of similar to how we beat Tampa Bay. You know, how we beat Tampa, where I was actually calling in the plays just based off this chart that I memorized off situations, like after a first down run of 3 yards or less, if he comes back out and this person will grip at the pass, if he comes out and this person will grip the run. I did it that way, but they did the same thing, except they were just getting the Raider call. They didn't have to study a chart. They just had to listen to the call, whoever these two individuals were that no one recognized. They just had to hear the call, and for example, it was this simple: if they hear one of those protection terms or whatever, basically, if it's a running play, the terminology is really short. If it's a passing play, it's going to be a little longer. Okay, but if these guys have studied and have done Raider games before, or they've been doing it for a while, they're going to pick it up. They're going to pick it up, and they'll be able to sit there on a running play, and they'll be able to have their arms crossed on a running play. And without making it too noticeable. Now, the Tampa Bay might not know exactly what run's coming at, but they know they're going to run the ball, you see. Or they know they're going to throw the ball. That's huge. Now the defensive line can get out to the quarterback and I'll have to play both run and pat. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's a huge – or, for example, if you know it's a screenplay coming, like they shut down the Raiders. Everything the Raiders did was shut down that day. It was amazing. Here's a team that no one can shut down all year long. And here they are getting shut down. Then all of a sudden they get hot and score 21 unanswered points. Now one of those was that blocked punt, but they did rally. They did rally, and how can you go from being so bad to making that rally, and then well, I guess I see Stabler do it every week when I was a kid. But yeah, every week, and that was the Raider deal. I mean, the game never ended until the Raiders won. That's kind of how it was back then. But yeah, all of a sudden they get hot, but I don't even put two and two together until later on, after a few years after I'm not even coaching anymore, when Tim Brown came out and said that, and when Jerry Rice said that, and then it hit me. It hit me. I said, my God, that happened. And you want to know why I know it happened? Because we got approached one time by a guy when I was in Oakland who came up to our office and said, hey, I know all the terminology for the Chargers. It was the last game of the 2007 season. He goes, I know when they're throwing and running the ball, this and that. And he says, I am going to be on the sidelines, on their sidelines, across from you with that Motorola. And he actually told us he knew the signals and all that. And so anyway, we don't know if it's legit or not, right? We don't know if this guy's for real or not. We don't know anything about him. We just know that this guy came to our office and told us this. And he told us what he was going to do. All right. Rob goes, hey, make sure you take a look over that guy. Take a look and see if that guy's right. Okay, this is true too now. So I was in charge of getting the personnel group, so I wasn't in charge of watching that guy. But one of the other coaches said, well, he's giving the run signal here, and so Rob would say, okay, guys, he'd make a call. He'd make a call, Rob would or whatever, and sure enough, it might be a run. Okay, now the guy was right. We didn't use that information, all the time because we just couldn't believe a couple of things. Like he was wrong a couple of times. He wasn't right. So it was like, can you trust him? But I know it could happen because we got approached one time by it. So that's when I couldn't believe that either. I was like, why would you? So then it hit me again, just not too long ago. It's like, why don't colleges have heads? Why don't other teams in college do this? They always have those sideline signals and stuff. The NFL is the only sport where they have a radio communication going into the quarterback. That's too easy to cheat from. That's too easy for people to get a hold of that, to give you that information, And I believe that's what happened because I know a guy tried to help us out, and we didn't win the game, but he was right. He was right on a lot of his calls. We knew what they were anyway. It didn't matter. We didn't win the game. I mean, we wouldn't do a lot of games when I was with the Raiders where we played great on defense and lost the game. We nailed the Carolina Panthers in 2008. I mean, we knew everything, and they still beat us, because we couldn't score.
Yeah. Those defenses for the Raiders were great back then. Absolutely. And that was always the rub, was that it was like, defensively, you guys were fantastic, but then offensively, we just couldn't put points on the board. So My goodness. But gosh, I can't tell you, Randy, this is fascinating stuff, man. I can't thank you enough for sharing these stories with us, man. This is awesome.
I'm sure this is, I've kept my mouth shut for years, and I've tried to get back in the league. And I just, there's a lot of things that happen in Oakland behind the scenes. I mean, I could go, there's stories with Kiffin. And here's the deal. I like Lane. I thought Lane was a really good coach. I really did. But I just have to be honest when I say this, he had the attitude and I thought it was a league-wide attitude that the Raider job was the greatest head coaching job in the world because you could only do good. You can't lose there, even if you do lose.
Because Al was always going to get the credit or the blame, one or the other, right?
And in the whole time I was there, I never heard one time Al Davis ever call a play or do anything like that. That never happened when I was there. And you hear stories about how he would call the press box or whatever.
Right.
But I never. If he did, he didn't do it when I was there.